a lot of my friends are couples with young children. When I asked how they're doing, the reply I often get is surviving. And what's interesting is we think it's the physical, it's physically tiring to take care of young children, but that's not what people often complain about. It's the kids' constant need for attention that's emotionally draining for parents. Have you experienced that? Why do you think young children require so much attention?
I think it's a really good question. I also think it's a matter of age, right? When the kids are young, like infant and toddlers, then I think they require a lot of attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's also matters how much you expose them to social situation, right? With other kids and other adults. There's another aspect to it, which I think, kids are, they used to, in terms of feeling bored, right? So parents do not allow their kids to feel a lot of boredom these days, right? They feel they have to occupy them all the time. And my kids actually, they know when they come to me and tell me, Mommy, I'm bored. I tell them, great, now you will be creative and think about what you want to do. We technology that happened, prevent technology. And I'll talk about it a little bit later, all the helicopter parenting that we have to occupy them. We have to read to them. We have to always make sure they're not bored, cause that kids are having a hard time reaching out to their creativity and imagination, right? And it's very, very important for them to develop that. And there is no doubt that, today's technology actually affected how kids are accessing those resources they have, right? There's actually an interesting book. I don't know if you read it, The Shallow by Nicholas Carr.
Mm-hmm. I'll look it up. No, I don't think so.
It's a really nice book. It talks about how we are rewired with technology, right? Our brain is actually rewired. So there are areas in the brain we don't touch anymore. So I think that's a very interesting matter, how parents are having a hard time to allow their kids to develop that on their own. And kids are getting used to being dependent on that kind of attention, if I circle back to your question, right? So we are also in charge of that. How we model that to our kids is extremely important. And I think it's a lot about that as well.
Yes.
So modeling is the best way kids learn, right? If we will tell them, listen, you see, mommy has her time, you need to have your time. Think about what you want to do in that time. That will make a lot of difference in the kids' life as well. They learn through modeling.
Yes, I feel the modern parents, the relationship between them and the kids have changed a lot too, because of potentially the technology developments. I'm always curious how families did it before. For many years, even just 50 years ago, families would have 3 or more children. And there were no washing machines, there were no meal deliveries. So how did the parents do it? I feel like sometimes we're just emotionally fragile now.
I think in just a few decades, there's been a huge change in the amount of time and the attention and even the financial investment that we put in our kids, right? It wasn't like that. Right? People weren't the center of the world. They were raising themselves, being independent, right? Mm-hmm. And somehow it evolved to them being the center of our life, right? Not that it's bad, but it's just what happened in the past few decades. And it's just a different story. It's much more of an intense parenting that we are seeing right now. Whether it's, people are working, moms are working, right? Mm-hmm. We know that. We are both moms that are working. And the amount of time we spend with our kids is similar to what a stay-home mom in the 70s would do, which is insane, right? It's an amazing fact, right? So I think part of the fact is that parents are very occupied with maintaining their kids' advantage and status, and even want them to do better than them. Mm-hmm. Right. So we think by doing that, by being the kind of, like we said earlier, the helicopter parenting style, which I'm sure you are familiar with. We all are, right? I do that as well, right? I try to be very aware, but I do that as well, right? Noticing all the experiences our kids are doing and their activity, keeping them safe, right? That's not how I grew up, right? I grew up being outside, riding bikes, and then my parents are calling me for dinner. That's not how I raised my kids. I raised my kids in the Silicon Valley, and I barely let my son go with his bike to a friend's house because I'm scared. Because that is something that I'm trying to have control over and to give them the independency, my kids, to become more independent and to develop their internal resources, right? So it's a huge struggle for parents today, and we see it all the time, right? And especially when we raise our kids in the Silicon Valley, we know how much of a problem that is. We have to artificially expose them to a situation where they are struggling. Not much struggle. Yeah, now in the past year it's a big struggle for the whole world, but in general we have to artificially kind of make that for our kids, and we have to do it with the little things. Like if my son is coming to me from school and telling me, Mom, this kid kind of pissed me off, can you talk to the teacher or can you talk to their parents? And I'm like, you know what would you want to do in this situation? Let's think about a solution. Maybe you can go and talk to either that kid or your teacher. I try to empower him to come up with his own solution instead of me going and solving it for him. And I think it's a huge struggle because the first thing I want to do is to call that mom and tell her, why is your kid doing that to my son? But I hold myself because I know it's not the best thing for him, and it's not how I will prepare him for the world.
That's very good. Yes, that I can totally relate to that. And I feel like we as parents, we feel like we need more control now. It just in general, right? We feel like we can control things, but in reality, it's an illusion. And at the same time, setbacks is actually good for children, for kids.
Absolutely.
That would give them resilience, that will help them to learn. And we're trying to protect them from this now, but it's actually probably not the right thing to do. So when they encounter difficulties, instead of feeling anxious, we should think, hey, this is a good thing. And then now let's work through it and then see how we can learn from it, how to deal with it.
And I think it's changing our perceptions as parents to see those situations as an opportunity, not as a, oh my God, my kid is in distress. And okay, now I have an opportunity to build his emotional maturity and to help him build those social skills and those kind of executive functioning, even of how to deal with reality, because I'm not always going to be there. So when we are doing it as parents, we're actually doing it for us, right? And if we change our perception and learn more about those opportunities and how can we prepare our kids best for this world, which you and me know is not an easy world, right? We have to give them the necessary skills to deal with reality. Then it's easier for us to become aware of that. But it's still very difficult. I'm a mom, I'm a psychologist, I know all the theories, I know everything, and I have those stuff as well. So I'm validating all the parents out there. Parenting is very difficult. We are pioneer parenting in many ways by raising kids to technology, which we were not raised this way. So it's a huge struggle being a parent these days. So all the parents out there, I have a lot of respect for you.
It's good to hear this from you. One other thing I noticed is so families used to be together a lot more with each other, whether it's neighbors or local communities. For example, the previous owner of the house I live in, they had 4 kids. I mean, they have 4 kids, all grown-ups now. And their house used to be the point of gathering of the street. Kids play together after school, often block parties. Everybody knows each other. Like they see each other every day on a daily basis among the neighbors. So I feel that would be a nice support network. But we don't do that anymore. And families are more isolated from each other. And why is that?
I also think it's something that, is much related to, you used to live near your parents or at least a sibling, right? The extended family would used to be close and that would be your support system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just a few decades ago, you used to live and a driving distance from your grandparents, right? And it's just not like that anymore. More than like 40% of extended family live far away from each other, right? And it created a situation where you were isolated. And trust is a big thing because you're not going to let just anyone be with your kids, or we're creating different kind of communities, and that is extremely important for our support. It's also hard, right? For example, I'm originally from Israel, and we have a very strong community of Israelis here. But it's not easy to find, right? Because whether it's based on culture or on other things, is just extremely important to find that for your family and for yourself as well, right? We are all living a better life if we're part of a community. And those stuff are actually researched. There's a lot of study that people are actually physically healthier if they live within communities. Mm-hmm. They have less disease. They're dying less from disease. There are a lot of research around that. And Absolutely. It increases your well-being. Think about the most happiest places in the world, like Denmark, right? Mm-hmm. I love it. So they're very, all the emphasis is on community. They have clubs, they have it's a lot of emphasis on community, and it's one of the verticals that is actually increasing well-being.
Yes, yes, yes. Community is very, very important to well-being. I think it was David Brooks who wrote a great article to discuss how nuclear family, just parents and the kids living alone, are declining now, and the importance of an extended family or a forged family with community. One thing I feel he didn't choose to dive into is the culture shifting online that contributed to the physical isolation of the families now. I feel we're spending so much time now instead of online now, instead of spending time physically in each other's company for pastime. I experienced this strange feeling. I don't like online interaction too much. It just doesn't feel like as satisfying as when you talk to someone in person. But because texting is so much easier than talking on the phone or meeting in person, online interaction often becomes the medium of choice for me. What might be some issues from this digital existence? I mean, for me, it's definitely a feeling of isolation.
I think it brings up a topic of social media and how people interact on social media, right? I think it's a different kind of interaction. There are advantages of social media. It connects you with people, with your family around the world, and with people that you wouldn't connect otherwise. And for people that, physical interaction are kind of more difficult, whether you're very introverted, it actually increases their interaction. So there's a lot of good things, but there's also a lot of things that are not very authentic, right? When we go on social media, one of the biggest problem is that you tend to present yourself as perfect, right? Mm-hmm. You want to show that your life is nice. You put those pictures of your family. I always joke with my husband that we put those family pictures online, and if someone would see what happened a minute before, my kid was screaming. He didn't want to take a picture, and we were like, sit and smile for the camera. We have to put it on Facebook, right? So and it doesn't really reflect real life, right? So I think there's a strong need to show yourself as desirable, as I'm having a really good life, and it creates a gap between what your life really is and how you show it to the outside. So there is something not authentic about that, and it creates a gap, and that gap is kind of making you sometimes lose your sense of identity as a family and as an individual, which I think that is a part of why the online interaction is sometimes problematic as well. If we talk about the online, video chat and all that, that's a completely different story as well. It has its advantages and it has a lot of disadvantages. And we can talk about it later if you want.
Right, right. Yes. I heard a lot of people were feeling very isolated after having too many Zoom meetings. They just started doubt the kind of the physical existence of their body after, all they have with each other is like a picture that you see in the Zoom calls. Yeah.
It's not just the picture. It's also, you see this part of my body, right? First of all, I see myself, right? When a person see themselves all the time, they're controlling their reactions, which means all the non-verbal cues that we used to get with people. When I see you in the street and talk to you, I don't see my reactions all the time. So you kind of see me and see other things in me, and my face looks different, and it's fine. That's how human interact, right? And we kind of lost this aspect when we're doing everything online, right? So I do lectures online. I lecture to avoid. Everyone's on mute. I don't know if I'm funny anymore, right? I tell jokes. I use a lot of humor in my lectures, and it's just a different kind of interaction. And cognitively, we perceive it differently. We're more occupied with how we look, right? I always recommend people to hide self-view, because I think it's really good not to focus on yourself when you're talking to other people, and preserve eye contact, which I think is extremely, extremely important. And by hiding self-view, you have more spontaneous reaction, which I think it's extremely important. So, and I talk with my hands, as you see, because I like to express myself this way. And it's also something that is kind of lost in that interaction.
Right.
So a lot of things are lost. And I hope it will be some kind of a mix between the physical and the online interactions, because I think it's extremely important.
Yes. Yes. Very interesting. And we talked about how the parents get mentally drained after spending too much time alone with young children. But on the other hand, what about the kids? Can we talk a little bit about the kids? What happened to children who grow up lacking communities, especially in emotional well-being, which we both care a lot about? I feel like we just discussed the benefit of physical interaction there's some benefit cannot be replaced digitally. And that's especially important when children are in their developmental phase.
That is correct. And it's highly related to the age as well, right? We all know how social connection is and social support is essential, right? In supporting emotional and physical development, like you said. When kids are small, it's less noticeable, right? Because they need their caretaker, they need someone to take care of them. As they grow, I think this need for social and community is growing. And I think it's a lot about the parents, right? So the parents need to model that and to kind of seek for that, even if it doesn't come intuitively, or even if it's difficult, right? I think because it became a little bit more difficult in today's world, then people kind of gave up, right? And if we keep it in mind that it's so important to build resiliency and for our kids' mental resources and how important it is even for us, not just for the kids, then people will seek for it more. And it's extremely important. And I really think it's up for the parents to make sure that they are exposing their kids to other people and develop. I think we talked about it in the past. It's a lot about trust as well. There is a lot of kind of lack of trust in people, and you want to keep your kids closer, and you want to kind of, you're the only one who can protect them in your mind, and to develop those trust with people and to let people into your life is extremely important. And I think this is where we need to do a little bit more work with people. Because like you said, people are isolating themselves. Families are living on their own. They trust their partner, but nothing more than that. And they think it's enough. So I think more education around that, of how important it is to open up and to trust your community, and to kind of let go of the control we think we have, but like you said, is kind of an illusion, is extremely important.
Okay. Yes, I think it's a good time to talk about Kumbaya. So you built Kumbaya. It's to me, it basically offers an old-fashioned communal environment for families to help out each other, with kids being the front and center of these relationships. Can you talk about how it works and where it is now?
Sure. So when we built Kumbaya, we really had a collective lens in mind. We wanted to bring back all the communal based living and kind of increasing trust and get help from your community. And we found out that kind of hiring teens can really be leveraged to that. And also the teens feel very disconnected sometimes from their community. And by doing those kind of job that Kumbaya offered, they were actually being more connected to their community and helping kids, whether it's tutoring, whether it's babysitting, kind of really help and be an active part of the community. So parents hire teens. Mostly it was supposed to be a lot of in person, but it turned out to be online, which I think was part of why it didn't work out like we wanted it to work. But we were really thinking about motivating teens to become part of the community, to learn about being in the job market early. We had all kinds of goals, but I think it was amazing to see the connection between which is the one of the things that I love the most about it, to see how kids viewed teens, right? They looked at them as they are like mentors, they're like buddies, right? It's not like someone is teaching you right now or someone is coming, an adult is coming. So I think that seeing that connection created in the community and the trust that was created was one of the most beautiful things I've seen while doing this job.
Yes, there are more kind of closer in the peer ladder, right, between the younger kids and the teens. And I heard that well, I think it was the author Catherine Lewis Reynolds. I think she once said teens need to be employed to feel a sense of worth. There's a lot of emotional issues that are quite prevalent in teens, lack of motivation being one of it. And do you see kind of that? Do you think did you see a change that's being made in Kumbaya among kind of the teens population?
I can tell you that teen Generation Z in general, there is a systemic change from the generation before. So there is, they are much more future oriented. They want to learn. It's kind of a neglected population. They're like almost adult, but not adult. So they don't have a lot of opportunities. They have nowhere to find a job. In the 70s, 70% of the teenagers used to work. Now it's only 30. Part of the reason is because they have a lot of academic load and it's kind of crazy after school activities and all that, and they have no time to find they can't go and work every day at 4. So what they do need, and this is the gap we kind of find in the market, that they're looking for casual and non-committal job that they can do in their spare time, and they have nowhere to find it.
Right.
They're underage, so their parents needs to be involved in the process. They go to next door. You see them on next door and they're telling them, if you're not 18, you can't look for that job. So they're really struggling on finding that. And this is why we created that platform to help them find that way and that leverage, and to learn about the job market earlier than later in life, and to prevent them from hanging out in the streets or doing technology or of spending their leisure time in doing things that are not very beneficial for them. And we didn't succeed. The company did not, we ended up closing the company, but the goal of it and the purpose of it is still very needed. And I really hope that it will, somehow someone will do something about that, because I really believe in that kind of vision and helping that type of population.
Yes, I mean, to me, I think the vision it just makes so much sense. What's the biggest draw for customers to use Kumbaya? I mean, you have all kind of different customers, right? You have the teens, you have the parents of the teens, you have the kids and their parents. What do you think is the one kind of product or service that people are most excited about and they want to get online, get on your platform?
I think what we saw is that we had lots of teenagers on the platform. Much, we did not expect that. That was very surprising, right? They and by researching and talking to the user, we understood that so many of Generation Z are just interested in knowing, in getting educated, in working, in contributing, right? In getting into that. So that was definitely one thing that we saw. A lot of parents were interested in tutoring, that teenagers will do tutoring for their kids or playing with them even. It's been a rough year. Parents were in need of all kinds of things. And I think that was a lifeline at some point for a lot of parents when that happened. And I think developing a trust with a teen is not the same like developing a trust with an adult. I think it was easier in terms of kind of creating that trust in the community, because we had a parents approval process which contributed to the trust. So there are a lot of components that contributed to creating trust faster, which I think was a big thing. Which makes sense, right? You're less fearful of a teenage girl or boy than someone who's an adult hanging out near your kid, and I think that made a lot of difference.
Let's talk a little bit more about trust, because that is the key ingredient in any communities or relationships. What do you think builds trust, and how does the platform facilitate this trust building?
I think trust is, if we talk about kids, then we have the graph of trust, right? Who would you give your house key to kind of style is, very high on the trust kind of platform. Who do you bring into your house? Who do you do online kind of session with? All this requires all kinds of different trust. We focused on the relatively high level of trust with your kids, right? Because it matters if someone is coming to be with your kids or if someone is mowing your lawn, right? Those
Very
are
different
kind of trust. So I think when you look at trust, you need to see what are the level of trust and how do you want to create it. So we didn't get a chance to do that because we didn't proceed, but we meant to have like a background check for the parents that are putting their teens to the app and that are hiring the teens. Like everyone would have to go through a background check. I think that's something that is very common, right? We wanted to do a geographical kind of who are your friends that are using this person, right? 80% of the people are looking for recommendations from their friend when it comes to their kids. So, it's a lot about who is using who and who do you trust enough that trust that person. It's like second degree trust, right? So I think that plays a huge role in that. And we were trying to create that network of trust through friends, through people and through also we wanted to do reviews as well.
Right.
But reviews in that case would have to be very, very sensitive because we're talking about teenagers. So we're talking about kind of parents in the community. So we were working on a very sensitive and something that makes sense in terms of reviews. It's not Yelp, let's say it this way. We can't this restaurant sucks. We can't do that, right? We have to be a little bit more sensitive. So we were working on that as well. We have to take a lot of things into account when we were thinking about trust, and especially when we're talking about families and kids.
Right. Yes, it's very sensitive because you're reviewing people, and yes, I can see how it can get quite sensitive. But it's also a brand. It's kind of word of mouth, and it's kind of a level of comfort working with a different style of relationships. So
online and physical, which is completely different, right? The trust that people gave tutoring online is not the trust they will give if someone will come to their house. What we hoped would happen is that they would create enough of a relationship online And that's something to think about in future interaction, right? Whether you're doing like starting online and then bringing the people into your house, it creates more trust. You see the person, you online, you slowly built into the trust. So there's also, you know, a way to get built in to trust someone. So it's also something we kind of discovered.
Right. And another aspect of Kumbaya was it's a community, it's online community, but essentially it's kind of also a local community. People, I mean, at the end, it right. Does that also kind of so basically you're coming from online to local offline? Is there any surprising things that you find building this community? Is there any like parents reacted, reactions from customers, from parents that surprised you?
I think what surprised me is how open parents were to it. First of all, how teens wanted to do that and were motivated and responsible. And, you know, I when you think about the normal teen in your mind, you say, oh, they're kind of lazy, and that is not true. So that surprised a lot of people of how responsible and serious the teens were. They were preparing for the classes. If they would tutor, they would, you know, even bring them like, all kinds of paper they need to fill out and shared screen. And they were very, very responsible, which I think kind of surprised the parent side. And I think that was quite amazing to see. And I think they were surprised how fast kids related to the teens, which was also kind of, I used to get texts like, wow, my kid is like asking for, another class. They see them as a buddy. They do that. And another aspect that was very beautiful to see is how it impacted the wellness of the team to do the job, to know that they have something to look forward to know that someone is trusting them, to get that sense of I'm almost an adult. So I think that was another part that was I don't know if surprising, but very beautiful to see.
That's amazing. Who made those observations? Did the teens report them, or the parents kind of described the difference they observed?
We did a lot of user reach out and interviews, and that was, I think, one of the most important thing that we did. We reached out a lot. We talked to a lot of parents. We were always open. Everyone had, basically, a lot of people had my personal phone to text me if they need anything. So I think our customer kind of approach was very important here. So we were really supporting people when they needed it, especially during this year. And I think it was extremely helpful to do that. And
it's such a beautiful idea. Last question is, what values do you consider important to pass to your kids?
I think that's a really good question, and it's a hard one because there's a lot of things I wanna kind of pass to my kids, but I think, values are changing and growing. Some of them are inherited from our family, and we internalize them really, really well. I think one of the most important thing we need to teach our kids, and I want to teach my kids, is the value of community and how important it is, and how you need to give the community and get from the community, and kindness and compassion. It's one of the values I definitely want them to learn. I think kids learn the initial value, at least, when they grow from their parents. So what we not just tell them, but also show them, right?
By modeling.
If my house, if every Friday I eat dinner with friends, and I have friends here every Friday, not when the pandemic is happening, but we have people here, and the kids see it, and it's something they will take with them, right? They will know that, people are coming over and we're hosting them, and this is how we treat our guests. And, those are values that are inherited. They may not put a name to it, but this is how they grow up. So they will put a name to it in the future, but we need to think how we want to transfer our own values to our kids, especially by showing them that we are doing that.